You said yes when you meant no. Again, not because you wanted to, because the thought of saying no and watching someone's face change, the disappointment, the awkwardness, the possibility that they might like you slightly less felt genuinely unbearable. So you smiled, you agreed, you helped, and then you went home and felt quietly resentful about it, which made you feel guilty for being resentful, which made you work even harder to be nice the next time. This is not kindness. This is a psychological pattern with a name, a cause, and a cost that most people never calculate until it's already bankrupted them. And today we're going to talk about all three. People-pleasing is not a personality trait, it's a survival strategy. Psychologists define it as a compulsive need to gain approval and avoid conflict at the expense of your own needs, boundaries, and authentic self. The clinical term is sociotropy, an excessive reliance on positive relationships for self-worth. But here's what that actually looks like in real life. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. You laugh at jokes you don't find funny. You change your opinion mid-conversation when you sense the other person disagrees. You feel responsible for other people's emotions. You find it easier to be angry at yourself than to be honest with someone else. And the worst part? People pleasers are usually described by others as such great people. So easygoing, so kind, so low maintenance, which is a compliment that translates to, you have successfully hidden how much this is costing you, because it is costing you enormously. And the bill has been building for years. Here's where it starts. And this part might be uncomfortable. People-pleasing almost always begins in childhood. Not because your parents were monsters, usually because love felt conditional. Maybe approval came when you were helpful, agreeable, or easy. Maybe conflict in your home felt dangerous. Not physically, but emotionally. Maybe you learned very early that keeping the peace was safer than expressing what you actually needed. So your brain did what brains do. It adapted. It built a strategy. Make people happy, and you stay safe. Cause conflict and something bad happens. Keep everyone comfortable and you will be loved. That strategy worked when you were 7. The problem is your brain never got the memo that you grew up, so now you are an adult running a 7-year-old's emotional software. Still people-pleasing, still managing everyone else's feelings, still terrified of what happens if someone is unhappy with you. The child adapted to survive. The adult is exhausted from never stopping. Now here's the bill. Cost 1. You attract the wrong people, nice people. Genuinely boundaryless, always available, never say no nice, are magnetic to people who like things that way. Users, takers, people who are excellent at identifying someone who will absorb their problems, their moods, their demands, without pushing back. This is not an accident. People who take advantage aren't stupid. They are very good at finding people whose need to be liked is stronger than their need to be treated well. Cost 2. You lose yourself slowly. When your entire identity is built around making others comfortable, you stop knowing what you actually want. What do you like? What do you actually think? What would you choose if nobody was watching and nobody needed anything from you? Many people pleasers genuinely cannot answer those questions because they've spent so long being whoever the room needed them to be that the original version of themselves has become a stranger. Cost 3. Your relationships are built on a lie. When you never say no, never share a real opinion, never show a difficult emotion, people don't actually know you. They know the performance of you, the agreeable, easygoing, always fine version. Which means when you eventually need something, real support, real honesty, real presence, the people in your life don't know how to give it because you never showed them you needed it. And the deepest cost of all, the resentment. People pleasers are some of the most quietly resentful people alive. Not outwardly, not visibly, but internally. A slow accumulation of every time they swallowed what they actually felt, every favor that was never returned, every boundary they didn't set and should have. That resentment doesn't disappear, it just goes underground, and eventually it poisons everything it touches. So why don't people pleasers just stop? Because stopping feels like becoming a bad person. When your entire self-worth is tied to being liked and needed and helpful. Saying no feels like a moral failure. Setting a boundary feels selfish. Prioritizing yourself feels wrong in a way that is difficult to explain to someone who hasn't felt it. And there's another reason. People pleasers are often unconsciously afraid that if they stop performing niceness, if they show up as a full human being with needs and limits and opinions, people will leave, and some will. That part is true, but here is what is also true. The people who leave when you start having boundaries were only ever staying for what you were giving them, not for you. Losing them is not a loss, it's a diagnosis. So what actually helps? First, understand that boundaries are not walls. A boundary is not, I don't care about you. A boundary is, I care about this relationship enough to be honest in it. The most connected, loving relationships in the world have clear boundaries because both people know where they actually stand. Second, practice discomfort tolerance. The anxiety you feel when you say no to someone is real, but it is not danger. It is just discomfort. And discomfort that you sit with instead of running from gets smaller every single time. The first no is the hardest. The second is difficult. By the 10th, it starts to feel like self-respect. Third, get curious about what you actually want, not what people need from you, not what would make everyone comfortable. What do you want? Start small. What do you want for dinner? What film do you actually want to watch? Rebuild the habit of consulting yourself first. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You've heard that. But people pleasers don't just pour from an empty cup. They hand the cup over entirely and then wonder why they're thirsty. Being nice is not the problem. Being nice at the cost of being honest with others and with yourself is. You are allowed to be a good person and still have needs. You are allowed to care about people and still say no. Those two things are not opposites. If this helped, subscribe. We break down one psychology concept every week. No fluff. Stick figures, small words. See you in the next one.